Okay, we're back with our third and final segment. This is Monday, January 22nd, and just kind of a final wrap up. A couple of quick comments. We gotta wrap up on the NFL discussion. But Alex, did you decide between the Ravens and the Chiefs who you gonna pick?
I'm just not gonna bet against the Chiefs. I think they're just getting hot at the right time. Defense is looking good, I think. Going into next week, I think Lamar plays a good game, but I think ultimately the Chiefs are clicking. They're just hot right now, and it's hard for me to bet against them.
So you've got Chiefs-Lions in the Super Bowl, a rematch of the Hall of Fame season opener game. Between the Chiefs and the Lions, which the Lions won first game of the year. And I've got the Lions and the Ravens. Okay, well, good. Couple of things just to sort of segue into. I have, and Alex and I are going to keep going with this with the podcast, and we're going to continue to talk about some sports. But I think as we continue to let this thing unfold, I think that we're going to probably get certain segments with certain discussions. We're probably going to get a little bit more rigid with the time limits. I know even today our first two segments were both over 20 minutes, which I think, ideally I'd like for segments to be about 10 to 12 and then have a whole podcast that's, in that, half hour to 45-minute range. And sometimes with all three segments, it's going to end up being even more than an hour. But anyway, just to say it out loud with you, Alex, and I'm kind of doing this with some other content that I'm creating, but about 6 months ago, I started working on a curriculum and basically an online course that is for, I'm just making sure my mic is working the way I want it to. Yeah, I think it is. Sometimes it toggles and it's not exactly what it was yellow. Okay. But about 6 months ago, I started working on this curriculum, and it's really designed for teenage athletes and their parents.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, Alex and I got to know each other when Alex was, 8th grade.
Right.
And Alex was a really good athlete, and at the time, it was a small school where I was coaching and I was athletic director, but Alex was a really good receiver in football, played basketball as well, and so I got to know him and I got to know his family among a lot of other kids, and I've coached at I think it was 5 schools in 4 states for about 28 years, and I guess the last couple years was a 6th school where I have coached a little bit, just kind of helping out when my daughter took over as a middle school girls basketball coach, and I helped her and really enjoyed 3 years coaching with her, and then she started having babies and kind of retired, so I sort of retired again. But all that is to say, as I've put this curriculum together, one of the things that I would say there are 3 sort of general points of emphasis that is sort of a foundation that it's built on, and it relates to how well I know Alex, and it relates to I think every teenage athlete and their family. But the first thing, and it's not in order of importance, but it's just sort of a matter of emphasis from a practical standpoint, and it's, again, not in any particular order. But one thing is to be a great athlete. Understanding the discipline, the work, the time around the calendar, what you need to do to be the best high school athlete that you can be. And there are a lot of high school athletes that want to get scholarships to go play in college. I think that's good, but it can be an experience where you do have that as a goal. And it could also be an experience where you just have a goal to be a great high school athlete.
Right.
But that's the first kind of sort of leg to stand on is, understanding how to be a great athlete. And a lot of parents know a lot about that, maybe not all the details of that, because a lot of parents were athletes also, but there's some parents that weren't as focused on athletics. And so it's good to understand that. The second thing that I think is really important is to understand that when you're a teenager, you're sort of on that, it's like you've climbed the ladder and now you're going down the slide. And when you're going down the slide as a teenager, there's a lot of things that gravity is pulling you to do. And by that, I just mean your nature. As a teenager, you have a nature to be independent. You have a nature to be on your own. You have a nature to think that you know more than you probably know, which is not always bad, because that's just called confidence. And sometimes it's misplaced. But teenagers can tend to be a little bit stubborn, and they tend to have a natural desire to sort of pull away from authority and ask questions. And so part of this process is, how do you navigate your relationship with your parents, and how do you as parents navigate your relationship with your teenager, understanding what your goals as parents are. And if you understand that, then athletics, it kind of leads to the third leg, which is, I said it's not the order of importance, but this is kind of the biggest one. And that is understanding that athletics is not the goal. And by the goal, I mean the goal of life. Athletics, you're going to have athletic goals, but athletics is something that prepares you for life. And if you're Tom Brady, then you are about 1 in 300 million of as far as going as far as you can go as an athlete. That maybe there you could count on one hand the Tom Bradys of the world. Jordan, LeBron, Peyton, Brady, Tiger, Serena Williams. Those are the type of athletes that have changed the world of athletics. But all of them have had to struggle and figure out what life is after athletics. Tiger Woods has been through a lot of stuff. Peyton Manning has already kind of reinvented himself as a celebrity, as a television figure. Brady has had a marriage end and is figuring out parenting as a single dad in a lot of ways. None of these people are worried about finances, I don't think. Compared to most people. But life, these are all people that are Tiger Woods. Serena, these are all people who are relatively young, that have they haven't reached the midpoint of their lives yet. And they've got to figure out what's their purpose. What are they doing? And so in a lot of ways, we were talking earlier about how sometimes it's better to lose in the divisional round than to make the Super Bowl and lose. Right. Well, sometimes it's better in life to stop playing football in college. Sometimes it's better in life to go to the NFL and get there, and then your career's cut short and you play for a couple years, or maybe you get bounced around, you get traded a little bit, and then you don't ever become. Look at Ingle Martin. Ingle Martin is a very successful high school football coach. He's from right here. He played high school football at my alma mater, and I'm not ashamed to say he's probably. I don't think it's probably any debate. I think he's the greatest quarterback to ever play at Montgomery Bell Academy. I'd love to be in the discussion, maybe the top 10 or something. But he was a great quarterback, and he went on to play at Florida. He transferred and played at Furman. He got drafted and played as a backup for Favre for a little while. I don't know if he was ever the second string. I think he was the third string, and then I think he might have gotten traded to another team. And then he moved on, he was probably your age, Alex, when he had already gone through all of that, gone through the NFL. I look at Andrew. I look at my 24-year-old son, who, football was everything to him in high school, and I have to keep reminding myself of the truth, which is, God's plan for Andrew's life and Andrew's goals as a man are much greater than any goals he would have had as a football player. And he went through an incredible amount of life lessons through his high school career and then through his college career, and ended up basically, after having been probably one of the best passing quarterbacks ever to play in Louisiana, to a guy that never got to play in college. Just didn't even play, didn't even see the field. And it was just a weird and painful thing to go through for him and for us and for everybody. But Andrew's doing life now, and he's not worried about what happened with his football career, and he's not like Uncle Rico in in Napoleon Dynamite, thinking about, man, I could have done this, or I should have done this, or the thoughts may be there, but he's not burdened by it, or at least he doesn't let it show that he's burdened by it. And so this idea that life has got a purpose for all of us. I think every human life has, we have talents, we have abilities, we have callings, and when you look at sports as something to get you to a great place of preparation for what life has in store, that is the point. And along the way, relationships are very important. I've gone through a lot of thoughts and of a process in just the last 5 years, really, of understanding the value of community and the value of relationships in terms of that calling. And so, there's a big part of me, and probably a big part of a lot of people, that really strive for isolation and strive for being able to, do things alone. And I think when you're a coach, or when you're a teacher, or you're a pastor, and you have a family life and so forth, there's so much community for so many years. Sometimes you feel like you need a breather, and it's hard to find that balance. And so isolation is important, and alone time is important, but it's not good to have all the time. Too much of that is not good and can lead to depression and other sort of mental health concerns. And that's a tough, hard thing. So the relationship between teenagers and their parents is very important. Athletics and academics and everything that goes on in teenagers' lives can make those things very stressful. I did not have a perfect, harmonious teenage life in terms of relationships with my parents. But my parents were great parents and great people. And I think Alex would probably say the same thing in terms of his experience. I don't think everything with Alex's teenage years were silky smooth, but at the same time, he's been fortunate to have some great parents. So there are a lot of single parents out there. There's a lot of single moms with sons, a lot of single moms with daughters, or single dads with either one. And so it's really important that relationship be the emphasis. And then, a kind of full circle back to the first one, it's important to understand, how to be the best you can be at something. And when athletics is kind of one of your things, or if it's the thing, then by gosh, do everything you can do to be the best you can possibly be. And so that's kind of what that program is about. Now, having said all of that, what I've started doing in, 4 months ago, and then a little bit more in the last 2 months, about 4 months ago, a friend of mine in New Orleans named Christian Garrick has his own streaming show on WGSO in New Orleans. It's a political show, but it's a show about values, and it's a show that he has started doing. He was a sports guy for a long time. He was a play-by-play guy for the Saints. Knew everybody in the Saints organization, and had a radio show that was a sports show. Deuce McAllister was on there with him. Bobby Hebert was on with him, the quarterback that used to play in the 80s or 90s. And he just wanted to get away from the sports part of it and wanted to start talking about more life issues and cultural issues. And so I've been a regular contributor on Christian's show every Friday. I think we're close to 20 weeks now that I've been doing that. And so that's been enjoyable, but at the same time, I enjoy talking about politics in the context of values, in the context of being a dad, in the context of being a Christian. And so I don't like politics just for the sake of politics. I think that's the same as athletics, quite honestly. I enjoy politics. I enjoy talking about issues. I don't enjoy, when people can't have discussions because they get so upset, or because they feel like an issue is so divisive that they can't have an honest discussion about it. I think it's sad and kind of unfortunate that some people lose relationships because of political perspectives. Values are a little bit different than just being a sports fan. If I hated the Packers, I wouldn't disown Alex as a friend because he loves the Packers. But sometimes that seems to happen with political candidates. And I'm also not of the belief that any political candidate is really the answer to life's problems. I feel like that's kind of comes down to the individual, and you have to control what you can control and what you're responsible for. And at the same time, be able to discuss and be able to lovingly express opinions without, attacking other people or calling people names and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of been a cool thing. A couple months ago, I started doing reels, which are about 90-second spots 3 times a week. I think I've gotten up to about 50 of those. And that's just really an attempt for me to build content of stuff that I care about. And then, the podcast has started now. So with the podcast, with the radio show, with the reels, and I'm even going to kind of start posting stuff and putting this on a blog page, and other things. And I'm just sort of building content, and I'm not really sure at this point in time where it's going to go. If the program starts generating revenue, revenue generation is going to be a part of what sort of steers me where I need to go, because I believe, in life, you got to find what your gifts are. You've also got to find out what you're passionate about, but you've also got to figure out a way to make a living doing it. And so I've been fortunate in the past year that I'm in a position financially that I don't have to make a ton of money immediately, but I'm going to have to start making some money pretty soon in order for me to, continue to proceed and be able to earn an income as a content producer or a program provider, and make that in the world of information service industry or whatever all that is. So I'm one thing I know doesn't work, and I've learned this from others who know better than I, is I'm not going to talk about stuff that I don't care about, and I'm not going to orchestrate discussions based on what I think people want to hear, unless what people want to hear is what I genuinely believe. Because I just, on the one hand, I don't want to be disingenuous, because I just don't like that. I don't like it when other people do that. But on the other hand, I don't think it's a recipe for failure. I think for me to start saying stuff that I don't believe in. And so sometimes it may get me in trouble. But it has before. But in terms of the sincerity and the approach of trying to be honest, I think that's going to be exactly what I'm aiming for. Now, this podcast, I am going to start having other guests, and I think Alex is at the very least going to be a regular guest with talks about sports and so forth. We may have to start doing, certain segments with different people and recording them at different times. But, we're going to keep talking about sports with Alex. But if some other discussions are coming up, then I think he's going to feel free to jump in on. So, Alex, out of all that stuff, is there anything that sort of jumps out at you that you have questions about, or that you have any thoughts about in terms of what's good, what's not, or what you'd want to be a part of, or what you wouldn't?
Yeah, I think like you said, talking about certain issues that or especially are like relative to me, as a younger person coming up in this newer generation. I think there's like certain political things that can challenge me as a believer. Like, where do I come down in the middle of it? Like, do I want to, does it test my faith? Like, can I still consider myself like true to my word as a believer, yet be supportive? And so it's just like, at least at the least, get me to think about, critical thinking about, and test my faith. Like, where do I stand? What do I think? And being able to talk about that openly, I think, is always, I think, you don't want to step on anyone's toes, especially today, but you also have to be willing to like stand up for what you believe in, and I firmly believe that. And then also, like you said, just talk about some other life things, like what I'm passionate about, like what you talked about, like, but also being able to like make a living. And so me being able to navigate that for myself, is obviously been challenging for me. And so talking about that would be very interesting. And no, I think and as we kind of move forward, I think there's things that might happen in like today's events that that might come up that we could obviously discuss too. And so yeah, I think I'm not a huge political guy, but there's things out in the political world that I still have like passion for. And and I'm a citizen of like the United States. Like, these things affect me, whether, I want to like think about it or not. So that will test me to think about it more. And I think, also do more research. I think, I've been definitely a person that, I'll have some hard conversations, but also if it's not like directly related to me, like, like the president situation, yes, like I am affected, but that's something that I try not to think about, just because it's kind of been an ugly situation. It is so polarizing, and it can a lot of people, you get their toes stepped on and feelings hurt when you have disagreements. And so I try to like just not really talk about it. However, at the end of the day, like, we are all under the same umbrella as like American citizens, like or people that like live in America. And so whether I like it or not, like whoever's in charge, leadership in my community and as a whole, like in the nation, like, it affects me. And so just being able to critically think more about that and being able to discuss, on a more, I guess, personal level, because I haven't really done that, as something that I honestly look forward to, just because I think, it'll challenge me, it'll make me feel a little uncomfortable. I think it's good for us to feel a little uncomfortable sometimes and get out of your comfort zone. But yeah, I think that's I'm excited for what's moving forward.
Yeah, and that's a balance that I've had to learn over the years. I mean, times have changed. The world is a different place from 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. But the thing that I've learned over over time is that there is that balance of kind of when do you stick up for what you believe and when do you just kind of choose silence sometimes.
Right.
You know, I think sometimes saying nothing is better than saying something. But you know, I think we sort of live in a world where, I don't know, people are just encouraged to say whatever they want without being challenged.
Right.
And if you're willing to say what you believe in, that's fine. But be prepared to answer some questions.
Right.
And be prepared to change your mind. If you're questioned on something and you get some maybe new insight or new perspectives on some things, then hopefully that's going to shape you and form you into being a wiser person. And, you know, it's kind of like everybody, I don't know how many people have said it, but a lot of wise people know, a lot of older people know that most of what makes you successful is failure. Most of what makes you more solid in your beliefs is when you've had beliefs that you've changed your mind on. And kind of understanding others' perspectives. And that's another balance is, you know, understanding other people. Right. There's a balance between those people are stupid and they're idiots and I don't care anything about them. Yeah, I mean, there are stupid, idiotic people. I'm sure there are times and examples of me being stupid. I know there are. But at the same time, I just think that in this day and age of information going so rapidly in every direction from everybody, that the podcast is an interesting dynamic because it's social media, but at the same time, you do have to sort of invest a little bit of, a few minutes in listening to a discussion and not just listening to bumper stickers. And the reels are sort of hopefully a segue into more substantive, ideas. And it's helpful for me because, you don't want to just keep on going on and on and on about everything. You want to be relatively pithy and concise. And so that's what becoming more disciplined and making these podcasts better is going to be, is we're dragging things on a little bit too long. But that's something that I'm going to learn from, and that's something I'm going to commit to, is just getting better all the time, getting better with the digital equipment, getting better with the technology, getting better with the presentation, and getting better with the content. And so every week, that's what I'm going to commit to doing. So, Alex, thanks so much again for being here. Next week, we'll have just 2 football games to talk about.
Right.
And maybe we'll even start talking a little bit about some other stuff. And I'm not real big on homework, and I'm big on my own homework. I'm not big on giving you homework. So whatever we talk about, you can just show up, and I'll pick your brain, and then we'll just have a talk. But you don't necessarily need to feel like you need to spend any time doing research. But if you do learn anything this week, or something strikes you as interesting in the next couple of days, then don't hesitate to text me and say, hey, this might be something good to talk about next week. Okay. And we'll kind of go into that with maybe the second segment. So
perfect. Thank
awesome.
You.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. This is Drew Robinson saying thanks for listening. This is Take It to the House. We'll be back soon.